Good morning, everyone. I'm San Francisco Mayor London Breed, and I want to thank you all so much for being here with us today to provide an update on COVID, on the election, as well as what's happening around Halloween in San Francisco. So I want to start with our update around COVID. We have 12,320 cases total since this crisis has began. 37 hospitalizations, 147 people have sadly lost their lives, and San Francisco has really stepped up its pace around its testing. We have been doing over 5,000 tests a day, which is absolutely incredible. Right now, our positivity rate is 0.89, and I know that so many San Franciscans have been hearing the stories about how great San Francisco has been doing in fighting the virus. But the fact is, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. And so today is just a reminder that not only are we doing well, we are starting to see a slight uptick in the number of hospitalizations, which puts us in a situation where things could possibly get worse than what they are. It's just a reminder. In places like France and Germany, they've had to make adjustments. France in particular is on lockdown again, and Germany, which has been a model in the rest of the world, is actually looking at restrictions. So it's not just about what's happening here in the United States, it's still challenging all over the world. And it's just a reminder that we are in the midst of this pandemic. And as a result of some changes that we've seen in the numbers, what we will have to do as a result is put a pause on some of our reopening efforts that we had planned for next week. And let me just say that San Francisco is in a good place. We are in the yellow tier. And as a result of being in the yellow tier, we made some very conservative choices around our reopening efforts. Our reopening and the decisions that have been made focused on when we were in the orange tier, because we know that the more we open, the more people are moving around, the more possibility there could be a spread. And the last thing we want to do is go backwards. The last thing we want to do is tell a business or a school or some place that they can open and then tell them that they have to close. So we're proceeding with caution. And what that means is some of the decisions that we made will still move forward, the ones that are already in place and a few more, but others will need to take a pause until we see an improvement in the numbers. What will remain closed? Indoor pools, bowling alleys, locker rooms, and showers at fitness centers. The capacity will stay at 25%. We initially had talked about increasing capacity specifically in restaurants from 25% indoors to 50% indoors. We unfortunately are going to need to put a pause on that, but we will leave 25% intact. Non-essential offices will be able to open at 25%, which they've already done, and we will keep it at that. So capacity staying at 25% include restaurants, our indoor worshiping places, churches and religious facilities, indoor museums, zoos and aquariums, movie theaters, which continue without concessions, unfortunately. And what's coming, some places that we're still going to be able to reopen include indoor dining at museums at 25% capacity, expanding indoor film production, and additionally live performances with up to 6 performers with a drive-in setting. And I know these are all very nuanced and complicated in some ways, but if you have any questions and you want to know how the policies relate to your particular industry, please visit the Department of Public Health website. It not only provides a list of what is opening and what can and what can't open, but also guidelines, which will help businesses and people decide what makes the most sense to move forward. And just a reminder, we are still in the midst of a pandemic. We are tired of COVID-19, but COVID-19 is not tired of us just because we're tired of it. And so it's still here, it's still present. We see it in the increased number of cases every day. We see it in the number of people who are sadly hospitalized, and we definitely feel it when someone loses their life. So it's important for us to keep that in mind. And what I'm so proud of is what I see when I'm out in the streets in San Francisco. People who are wearing their masks, people who are socially distancing themselves, people who are spraying down tables and other places to keep the visitors of their businesses safe. It's because of all of you. It's because of because you are following our public health experts and their guidelines. It's why San Francisco is in the yellow tier in the first place. And when you think about that, it's remarkable. We are the second densest city in the country, and we are still in a better place than most large urban cities. We should be proud, but we also know that there's still more work to do. And we also know that tomorrow's Halloween. Halloween is one of my favorite times of year, and I know there are still people who are making plans. I'm going to wear a costume, but I also know that I can't participate in any parties or large events or anything of that nature. And so we know that this is also important to families. Families, they have children who want to trick or treat. People have parties and they want to get together. And what we've seen during holidays, sadly, is an uptick in the number of cases because people are choosing to come together. And sometimes these parties and these events and these gatherings, they could become super spreaders. It just takes one person who is infected to infect, all of the people who attended a party. And that's where we're seeing numbers increase. That's where we've seen numbers increase in the past. So I just want you to be mindful, because even though this year will be a sacrifice, the sacrifice is worth it, because it means that we can get our kids back into school sooner. It means we can get our economy going faster. The more that we sacrifice now presents a better opportunity for us in the future. This is going to be a tough Halloween, I know, but I know that we can do it. And there are creative ways that you can participate in a number of programs. There's a virtual Halloween contest that I'm going to be attending, and it's supporting Larkin Street Youth Services, and Cyndi Lauper is performing, and it's going to be online. There are so many amazing creative ways in which you can celebrate. Restaurants are still open. The Shared Spaces program and people's ability to dine outdoors, socially distancing from one another, has been a huge success in our city. So supporting our restaurants and our small businesses while continuing to follow the health guidelines to keep people safe is critical. So let's be creative, let's be safe. Look on the Department of Public Health's website for some guidance on things that you can do with your children, with your families, with your community. But more importantly, let's not take this as an opportunity to celebrate and to go out and to party, because it could end up putting us in a worse situation than we are today. So the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about also was Election Day. And Election Day is on Tuesday, and I want to thank all the voters who have already voted and encourage those who have not cast their ballots yet to make sure that you vote. And we know that we're not sure what's going to happen with this election, but we want to encourage people to watch from home or with friends based on your groups of folks that you interact with on a regular basis within your families. We know people like to go out, and a lot of the bars are closed still, but make sure that you keep that in mind, that we're still in the midst of this pandemic, and we're not sure which way this election might go, but our city plans to be ready for any situation, and ultimately when you have large gatherings, when people come together for any particular reason, it puts us at risk. So please keep that in mind on Election Day and operate precaution and safety. I want to also just talk a little bit about our schools, because this has been at the top of so many people's mind, and it's been really not just frustrating but very sad that so many children in this city are still not back in school. We've had over 100 applications from private schools, and we're still having some challenges with getting our public schools to a place where they are planning to open. And Dr. Matthews and I in my office have been in close contact because we are here to help. We are here to help the Unified School District and get schools open sooner rather than later, and I'm so grateful that they're willing to work with us. In fact, they reached out to us in our Department of Public Health to evaluate their various facilities to make sure that they meet public health guidelines. We're also looking at how we're going to implement the testing that they want to set up to ensure safety within their various locations. So we think that working closely with the school district, using all the resources from the city that are at our disposal to support them, is hopefully going to get us to a better place and moving to open our cities a lot faster. We sadly continue to see the achievement gap grow. And even though there are some incredible fathers out there that I know are trying to do their part, we know that this burden of going to work and trying to socially distance and also take care of your kids while they're doing this distance learning is having a tremendous impact on mostly women in this city, which is further creating a challenge around inequities that continue to exist. There's so much at stake here. There's so much that we need to do. So I want folks in San Francisco over the weekend and through Election Day to keep that in mind. You may not have kids that are going to our schools right now, but think about them and their experiences. Let's try to do our part, whether we have children or not, whether we have elderly parents or not, whether we lost our job or not, whether we lost our businesses or not, because what we do by making sure we're wearing our mask and washing our hands and keeping our distance and avoiding large gatherings and parties and all the other things that we enjoy. What we're doing is we're setting our city up for a better future sooner rather than later. And that's what this is all about. So thank you all so much for your cooperation. We'll get it done. And I know this weekend is nice, but again, please do everything you can to stay safe and follow our guidelines. And with that, I want to introduce Dr. Grant Colfax, who will provide a more specific update around the challenges that exist through the Department of Public Health. And again, if you have any questions about Halloween, any questions about elections or Election Day, you have any questions, please visit sfgov.org or the Department of Public Health website. Thank you all so much and have a great day. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Dr. Grant Colfax.
Good afternoon. I'm Grant Colfax, Director of Public Health for the City and County of San Francisco. Thank you, Mayor Breed, for your leadership during this pandemic. And I want to reiterate Mayor Breed's thanks to the citizens, to the community of San Francisco for everything you're doing to slow the spread of COVID-19. You know, my office at 101 Grove across the street here is right next to the polling center where people are going to vote right now. And on my way over, I saw San Franciscans exercising their right to vote and doing it in a safe way, wearing those masks, socially distancing, using good hygiene. Thank you. Today is not unexpected with regard to our pause in reopening. Since we were removed from the state watch list on September 1st, we have had a consistent path of increased activity and movement. We have employees returning to offices at limited capacity, students returning to in-learning classroom, indoor dining occurring, and playgrounds being used. This is indeed good news, and this is progress. But as our activity increased, we knew, we expected an increase in infections was likely. And we have been, and we are prepared for this. Overall, San Francisco continues to do well, but we have seen an increase in case positivity and hospitalizations. And this increase is a cause for concern. We want to pause on increasing the capacity of riskier activities because we do not want the virus to get too far ahead of us. Because, as we have seen across the country and around the world, when the virus gets too far ahead, you can't catch up. And we, all of us together, have done a great job of not letting the virus get too far ahead. From the onset of this pandemic, we have closely monitored our local data. We have monitored the spread of the virus so we can slow the spread of the virus and sustain the progress we've made. San Francisco, we have avoided massive surges and crushed two curves, the first one in the spring, the second one in the summer. And the data are once again, as they told us earlier this summer, the data are telling us it is time to pause. We are working to extend the time before we reopen the next phase of indoor activities. The reason for this is because in the last 2 weeks, our case rate has gone from about 3 per 100,000 of population to 4. That's a 25% increase. That might not sound like a lot, but when this virus starts taking off, it takes off quickly, unless, again, we take efforts to slow its spread. In addition, our hospital numbers are increasing. They've increased in the last 2 weeks from 23 to 37. Low numbers. The good news is our hospital capacity remains good to take care of people, but that rate of increase is concerning. As a result, we have a shift in our local key indicators and keeping the healthcare system stable and managing the current rate of infection. That hospital rate of increase is in the red. And our case rate has shifted at our local level from yellow to orange. We have also seen a 38% increase in cases in California and a 41% increase in cases in the United States over the past 2 weeks. Until we understand the magnitude and the potential duration of increases, it makes sense for us to pause, to make sure we are mitigating the virus so we can continue to move forward and not backwards. We remain in relatively good shape compared to other major cities. We still continue to have lower infection rates compared to places like New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Denver, and Los Angeles. We continue to have the lowest death rate among major cities and the highest testing rate, as the mayor said, currently testing over 5,000 people a day. I am confident that working together, we will again beat back the virus, as we have done 2 times before. But I wouldn't be me unless I reminded you, keep wearing those masks. So important, saving lives by wearing those masks. Continue to physically distance. Wash your hands. Avoid large groups. The holidays are upon us, and now is not the time to throw caution to the wind. Let's be here next year when hopefully this pandemic will be behind us and we can get together with our loved ones in close contact, hugging, sharing food, giving toast. But we need to use caution this year. We cannot do this without the help and cooperation of all of you. So celebrate, but celebrate safely. Virtual election parties, small outdoor gatherings limited to 3 households, and again, please wear those masks. Thank you.
This concludes today's press conference. Thank you, Mayor Breed and Dr. Colfax, for your time.